diagnosis underway quickly. During this presentation, you're going to hear from individuals who have Alzheimer's. And they're in very early stages. So they still have some cognitive functioning. They're still very articulate. And they're going to describe their personal experiences. This is going to lend credibility to the presentation itself.
With a disease that takes your self, that's pretty scary stuff. And I think that the next wave of people with the help of the association is going to, the next wave of this disease is going to be to not be the only one you know who has it. You know, that we're going to get comfortable enough, and if we who can speak enough, and people say, well, she's not shirking, she can put two words together, she's still living, she's still out there, he's still talking, she's still writing, and there are people doing all of this, then I think the stigma, because that's a word we haven't said, will be lessened. I think it will be diminished. We don't blame people for having cancer. We don't turn the other way. We have historically done that with Alzheimer's disease. And I think that day is gone, and I think that we who live now and know about this are going to be part of the change.
As you can see, a very courageous person. I mean, she is really out in front, and she's grasping this by both hands, getting around the disease itself. That kind of an attitude is going to help her in the long haul. It's going to help her family as well. So in addition to the 10 signs that we're going to discuss, we're also going to talk a little bit about the disease and typical aging, and somewhere along the line there are some misconceptions about the difference between the two. Having a little touch of dementia is a typical part of aging. Well, not necessarily. It used to be years ago, somebody would say, Aunt Joe is failing because Aunt Joe has hardening of the arteries, or she's getting senile. And what people didn't realize was they were exhibiting symptoms of dementia and Alzheimer's. So even though a little touch of dementia in some cases can be part of aging, in other cases it is totally unrelated. That last sentence, remembering some things, is a lot different from Alzheimer's itself. Because one of the keys is you can have memory loss and not have Alzheimer's or dementia. You can have memory loss caused by medications, brain trauma, or you can have medication issues where it's over-medication. The key is being able to retrace your steps. That is not dementia or Alzheimer's. When you totally forget, when you can't retrace your steps, that's classic. What is the disease? It's a progressive disease of the brain. It destroys neurons of brain cells, thereby causing problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. Dementia itself is a general term. It's an umbrella term. The most frequently asked question I have is, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? If you were to look at an umbrella, we'll call it dementia. It's like cancer. It's an umbrella term. If you were to take the largest segment, which would represent 70% of cases of dementia, that'd be Alzheimer's. But there are other cases of dementia, just like there are different types of cancer. Alzheimer's is the most common. As I said, it represents 70% of the cases. And unfortunately, it is fatal. We don't have a cure yet. We're working on it. There's a major push with an R&D effort with a lot of pharmaceutical companies to find that cure. I have memory loss, that means I have Alzheimer's disease. As I said earlier, that memory loss might be caused by something other than dementia. Real key, always, and it's no different than any other disease, got to see a physician and start with that physician. If that physician feels that the next steps have to be taken, they then will recommend a neurologist or a specialist. Then they'll start some testing. But there's a difference between memory loss and true Alzheimer's and dementia. Some of the risk factors with Alzheimer's. The number one risk is age. And the incidence is higher in women due to the fact that women live longer. I have my own theory as to why women live longer. It's non-medical. It's just the Dan Daily philosophy. I think over a longer period of time, women have a tendency to handle stress more. And I think it's due to the fact that they're bringing up children, they're married, or they're exposed to a lot of nurturing, where they're constantly exposed to the highs and lows, and they're able to deal with it over a longer period of time. But men, me included, it's like a EKG signal. And it settles down. It's not a real even keel. I think, again, it's non-medical. That's not good. If it runs in your family, genetic testing will tell you whether you have it or not. You should not have any genetic testing done unless you start to experiencing some symptoms or you have a loved one. And that's when it's recommended. If you do this testing, you're just going to introduce a lot of fear and apprehension into your lives. You might have seen the movie Still Alice. I don't know if you saw that. That was out last year. Julianne Moore played the role of a woman, 51 years old, and she was afflicted with she had the familial gene, which brings on the early onset, it's a rare gene, and people in their mid-40s to 50 end up Alzheimer's is manifested. You have that gene, it's automatic. I mean, there isn't maybe. I mean, it's going to happen. Well, anyway, unless you have a gene like that, unless you get close to showing a lot of these different symptoms, it's not recommended. You just have genetic testing. Bottom line is, it's going to be up to your physician to recommend something like that. Now, it's going to increase the risk. You can have different generations in your family who would have dementia or Alzheimer's. If that's the case, then talk to your physician and say, I think it's time, but I would like to find out. And then that's between you and your physician. The thing is, it's going to increase the risk. It's not 100% indicated. The gene APOE-E4, this is a direct correlation between this and the metabolic process of breaking down cholesterol. And people that have that gene, it's going to increase the risk by 6 to 8%. It's very common in the old age population. Again, talking it over with your counselor or your physician is very important. And that bottom line there, it's an increase the risk. It's not 100% indicated. It's not a predictor. There is no question that a healthy body, healthy brain is a very valuable combination. You can have somebody who's had a stroke, a minor stroke. There's going to be some damage done to the brain because there's going to be an impediment of blood flow to the brain. Diabetes can be a contributing factor. And there's a definite strong link between head injury and dementia. Right now, the guys who probably know, if you go back to the 1980s in the National Football League, a lot of those guys now who are still with us, a lot of them have dementia issues from brain trauma, because it's a contact sport, it's a collision sport, and over a period of years, there's been some damage to the brains. And a lot of them now are in a class action suit, and they're suing the NFL because They were given medication so they could still play, or they didn't make them aware of the fact that concussions are more serious than just throwing it back your shoulders and saying, I'm ready for the next play. I mean, they're finding out now that the equipment that they used then is nowhere near as sophisticated and preventative as the equipment that they're using now. The 10 warning signs. There's no question that the number one on the hit parade is getting something recently learned. It's really amazing. You can talk to somebody who has dementia or Alzheimer's, and they can go back 40, 50 years and describe an event to you very vividly, but yet they have Alzheimer's. And people say, how can that be? Well, what happens is that there's a section in the brain that acts as a warehouse, and all the memory is stored in that warehouse. So something could activate that portion of the brain, and all of a sudden they'll start talking about that event. You could ask them what they had for breakfast this morning, they wouldn't be able to tell you, because it's recently learned, and so many neurons have been damaged that it's interfered with the cognitive functioning of the brain, so they just can't recall. Ask them the same information over and over again. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law, they used to come out here. They'd always come out from Michigan around Christmas time, and they'd stay through February. And this one year, she was then probably about 8. And we used to go to Mass every Sunday down at Our Lady of Fatima in St. Clemente. And this one Sunday, she said, Dan, what time are we leaving for church? And I said, well, the Mass is at 10 o'clock, we'll leave at 9. We'll get ready to leave at 9:15. And she always had a phobia about we can't be late, but we're early and all this. So this one Sunday she asked me, she said, okay. And I said, we're going to leave around 9:30. So she leaves and she comes back 5 minutes later. She said, now what time are we going to leave to go to church? I said, well, this is unusual. And then the following week, she did it again, except it wasn't 5 minutes, it was 3 minutes. And I called my brother-in-law and I said, when Mom and Dad get home, I said, you better take Mom to see the physician because something isn't right here. So I explained to her what it was, but lo and behold, she was showing signs then of dementia and Alzheimer's, and that was it. Relying on memory aids. Some people have a lot of different tactics that they use. I mean, tying a string around your finger might be one, but those are usually indicators.
Well, I have a strategy I'm supposed to use. I have a hard time remembering to do it. But I have an apron and I have a tape recorder that I can stick in one pocket and a pad and a pencil in the other. And if I would just really be good at using that, I'd be in better shape. But that's my strategy for trying to remember what I wanted to do and what people said to me and that kind of thing.
Fortunately for the woman, she has a sense of humor, and that's going to help her a great deal. I can tell you, 10 years ago, we wouldn't be able to show you these visuals here, because people were very reluctant to coming out and sharing their experiences. And once it did start, it's becoming invaluable because it helps others then deal with the problem. Challenges in planning and solving problems. And this can get down to putting on a microwave oven, you could be balancing a checkbook, taking longer than before to do common tasks. Again, my mother-in-law, this one time, she was a great cook. And one night, that morning, my wife had said, Ma, why don't you make some delicious meatloaf for dinner? She said, okay, I'll do that. Well, we go off to work and we come home, and the meatloaf that would normally be this big was about that big. She had left out an important ingredient. She never followed the recipe. It was all up in here. And that is another indicator that something wasn't quite right with it. Difficulty keeping track of bills. My friend, this guy had so many bills that were delinquent, I couldn't believe it. When I went to his house to check things out, I looked at this box and I said, John, you haven't paid any of these bills. He goes, the hell with them. I said, yeah, it's easier said than done. You don't want them coming to your house. But anyway, things like that. What has happened is he couldn't identify them. It didn't make any sense to him. So he just put them to the side, and he wasn't going to worry about it. This second item, driving to once familiar places. You'd be amazed the number of people that it's on rote memory, and these are people that shouldn't be driving, and they can drive out of their home. They used to go into the post office. They take the first right, second left, straight ahead, there's the post office. They can drive out, and all of a sudden they see a detour sign, they're going to go left instead of right, and all of a sudden they're lost. And that's where it starts to become an issue of safety. And it's very, very important. Completing daily tasks, these are what the typical tasks of bathing, dressing, cooking, shopping, doing all the basic things. And all of a sudden it's difficult for them. Because what is happening is their cognitive functioning is being compromised. And it just doesn't make sense. Remembering the rules of the favorite game. My buddy, this guy was a 4-handicap golfer. Anybody play golf here? This guy had 5 holes in one in his career. He was a real golfer. And when you'd play golf with him, and there's a saying that the putt is good if the cup is here and the ball is here, it's within the length of the grip of the club. He said, that's a given, you can take it. Well, I got a phone call one day from one of our good friends. He said, yeah, something isn't right with John. I said, well, what's the problem? He said, we're playing golf. And he said, he was taking these putts that are as long as the club. So it's completely different for him to be doing something like that. Well, the rules of the game weren't making sense to him anymore. And that's the classic example.
The biggest challenge is in reading and in doing simple tasks like just counting change. That's really hard for me. I can balance a checkbook. If someone gives me a series of coins, I have a hard time really figuring out how much change I should get. That's so, for somebody with a PhD, that's like crazy. And I think it's hard for me to come to grips with that.
That's pretty. Under these conditions, the weather like it is outside, they're walking around with a heavy coat and a hat because they don't understand the seasons, temperatures don't mean anything to them anymore, and forgetting where they are or even how they got there, which can be very dangerous. We have a program called Medical Alert Safe Return. Right now, 6 out of 10 people with dementia have a tendency to wander off. And it's not unusual for them to walk out the front door and not tell anybody, and they go for a walk, and all of a sudden they're lost, and people panic. And they say, my God, Uncle Joe is gone, my husband's gone, I don't know where he is. Well, this Medical Alert Safe Return, the family can register the individual on a national register, and they get a piece of jewelry, like a bracelet. And on that will be an 800 number. So the first responder who finds them, they call that number, and they'll have the complete background from that 800 number. They'll give them the name of the person to be contacted so they can be retrieved safely. So it's one of the programs, many that we do offer. Difficulty reading, driving, all the more reasons in the world. The driver's license has to be pulled. The car has to be taken away from you. It's a safety issue. It's not only their safety, but it could be somebody else's safety as well. I mean, you and I, we get in the car in the morning. First thing you do is you might turn on the radio, you might do an adjustment in the mirror, look in the side view mirror, pull out, going along with the traffic that's flowing by. All of a sudden, you look and you see the rear view mirror, or the side view mirror, you see a motorcycle is coming up. So you make the necessary adjustment. Somebody with Alzheimer's dementia, it's just too much information to process. And what will happen is they can't judge exactly how close that oncoming car is. And they might pull out the front, bingo, you've got a problem. It's not unusual to see somebody who would be very articulate, somebody who would be a great storyteller. All of a sudden, they become very quiet. They can't relate. It's not that they don't want to. They just can't follow a conversation. Or if they go to tell a joke, the buzzword might be missing, so they try to substitute the word with another word. And that's what is the trouble with vocabulary. It's not unusual for them. If you were to say, John, what time do you have? Well, according to my hand clock, it's 12:30. So they're substituting a term for the real term. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to stay in the real world in the conversation. It's very difficult.
My sister, who lives in North Carolina, I live in New York, I sent her an email. And apparently she showed it to my brother-in-law. And she called me and said, that email made no sense at all. And one of the things that I neglected to tell you was that I would do write emails, things that normally took me about 2 minutes to do. It would take me a half an hour, 45 minutes. And I'd have to read it over, and there was no guarantee it was okay. So I had another person at work read over it. And so it was hard. It was hard. And that's when I realized I thought my emails were fine. Then my sister started telling me and everybody, so I said, it's not, things aren't coming out right.
It has no boundaries. I mean, it has nothing to do with the education, the socioeconomic situation, gender, color of one's skin. I mean, there's no boundaries. It's non-specific. Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. I'll tell you another story of my mother-in-law. My wife and I were back in Michigan for her niece's wedding. And we had a room in this hotel that was right next to my in-laws' room. We get this panicky call from my father-in-law. Danny, so let me talk to Christy. I said, my wife. And she said, yeah, Dad, what's up? The mother lost her ring. She had like a $10,000 ring that he had given her years ago. And so we go next to her, and she said, Mom, what did you do with the ring? I don't know. I said, oh my God. So we're looking all over this room, pulling drawers out, looking under the bed. And my wife, she sees this wastebasket. There's a little piece of tissue paper. She takes the tissue paper out, and lo and behold, wrapped up in the tissue paper is the ring. Well, what she used to do every night is she'd clean that ring, and then she'd put it back on her finger. This time, she didn't put it back in her finger. She dropped it in the wastebasket. So, misplacing things, that's a classic example. I mean, the angst that created was just incredible. Retracing steps to locate a missing item. Invariably, we all come home, we're in a big hurry, we're going to go meet somebody at TGF Fridays, or whatever you want to dinner, an athletic event. You run in, put your wallet here, your car keys over here, you run in with your fast change, and you come ready to leave, and all of a sudden, you can't find your wallet or your purse. So, oh my God, what did I do with it? And immediately, you start retracing the steps. And you put it somewhere where you normally wouldn't put it, so you do find it. Somebody with Alzheimer's dementia, they cannot retrace those steps. That is lost, unless somebody that was with them saw the place. Accusing others of stealing, it's not unusual for them to accuse a loved one. I was making reference earlier to these gentlemen that quite often in Orange County, there are 85,000 people with Alzheimer's. 60% of the caregivers are family members.
And what happens is the behavioral changes start to take place, and the disease starts to progress. The level of expertise of that caregiver is flatlined because they haven't been trained. So lo and behold, one day, Mom says to Mary, "Where is my necklace? You stole my necklace." And this poor Mary saying, "I didn't do anything." "Yes, you did. It's gone. You stole it." Or they don't identify with it anymore. And say, "What are you doing in my house?" And it's tough. It's really tough. But this is the reality of the situation. Well, they're blaming the little kids. Poor judgment. The classic example. My friend, he had fallen prey to these scam artists who, these lotteries. I don't think of the other one that was very popular out there, the sweepstakes. And this one time he told me he had won $5 million. And this guy was the most conservative investor you can imagine. And I said, $5 million? I said, how did you, he said, it was an investment I had. I said, what was the investment? He said, come on over to the house, I'm going to show it to you. This is before he was actually diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So I went to his house, and he had these boxes on a table, coffee table. And they were alphabetized, and they're all sweepstakes. And he showed me this one, in big block letters, it is named John Smith. You have won $5 million. And then you looked at the fine print underneath, and it said, this entitles you to the next selected priority. And then in bigger letters, it had, please remit a check for $25 to keep you in the contest. Well, he was writing out checks for $25, $30. When I became a conservator, the first thing I did is I looked at the bank statements and I looked at his checkbook. In 1 year, he had written checks for $38,000. Now, this guy was a high-powered executive with a well-known insurance company. He dealt with actuarials all the time. He knew numbers like that. For this guy to fall prey to that, I mean, it was just mind-blowing to me. It was $38,000, that was gone. So it's very, very important that if you know anybody who's exhibiting these signs, you have to step in. You can't wait for somebody to ask you to, especially if it's a family member or a loved one, because those assets have to be protected. I made reference earlier to the very inappropriate clothing and all that. But that top one, giving large amounts to telemarketers, what happens with them is you say to yourself, why would they do that? Well, when they see somebody or they hear a voice that's very familiar, the last time they heard that voice, they were very nice to it. And that's what they remember. And they're really getting to the heart of the matter. And they're appealing to the fact that I know now how to deal with you, and I know how to get something out of it. Next thing you know, they're asking them, by the way, you know, I found this item, and I think you'd really like to get it, and I want to mail it to you. Now, let me have your email, let me have your address, if you have this. And oh, by the way, could I have your debit card number? Well, they start giving one thing, they give another thing. All of a sudden, that banking information is, everything in that bank account is gone. And it happens more frequently than infrequently. This is another classic. I described somebody earlier who's very gregarious. Some families, they have Sunday dinner at different homes every weekend. They go on vacations together. It's a big family grouping, and it happens very frequently. All of a sudden you have one person who used to be the center of attention, to be telling stories and jokes and everything. All of a sudden there's a personality change, and they're withdrawn. They become quiet. They're not in the conversation. The personality has changed. What's happening is they're not following the conversations. and they're not identifying with what's going on today. And the next thing that will happen is they don't show up for these dinners anymore. But what is happening is that their cognitive functioning is really compromised. They can lose track of a favorite sports team. I lost track of the Boston Red Sox for years when they were getting killed. But that wasn't because of dementia. That was my own choice. But getting how to engage in favorite hobby. But again, it gets back to avoiding social situations. But all of these things that I'm pointing out to you are very, very visible on a day-to-day basis. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. That poor man right there, he is very frustrated, confused, and very anxious. And it's very, very classical. And that's number 10 of the 10 warning signs. But the presentation here is in each of the packets that I gave you. So what should you do if you see some signs? Talk with the person if you haven't had a one-on-one conversation with them. See where they're coming from. You know, maybe it's something they had a change in medication that might be causing it. The key is getting them to a doctor. It's always the doctor who's going to make the diagnosis, and the doctor is the one that's very knowledgeable about changes like that. Getting the right treatment available as soon as possible is very important. It's crucial.
I would hope that families could be gentle but straightforward. I would hope that they wouldn't minimize the challenge of this or make it larger than it needs to be. So I guess I would say you have to be aware that changes are coming, but they're coming, you know, inch by inch, and sometimes foot by foot. But most often, you just have to talk about it. Not to be afraid to talk about it, not to be worried about how to talk about it, but talk about it. Because if you don't, I think that there's going to be 1 or 2 days where you just find there are arresting moments and you have no idea where to put that or how to manage that. Not to be afraid, just to talk.
Susan is very, very fortunate to have a sister like that who's really on top of things, who's really with her to help her along. Very, very important to have a loved one in the picture, playing a prominent role in her life. No point in getting diagnosed. I mean, that is so difficult. It's pathetic. It's no different than any other disease. The early diagnosis, the earlier, the more effective some type of treatment is going to be. Now, even though there isn't a cure for the disease, there are some things that can be done to help slow down the growth of it. There's also some things that can be done to make their lives more comfortable. And the Alzheimer's Association provides a lot of resources and programs to help not only the individuals diagnosed, but the families who are acting as caregivers. This is very important. It might not be Alzheimer's or dementia at all. As I said earlier, it could be something to do with the disease that's causing these symptoms. You can have hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism in both of them. You can have depression. It's a side effect of that particular disease. You could have a head injury from 10, 20 years ago. But all of a sudden now is creating some memory issues. Could be medications. If you notice, whenever you go in a physical every year to your physician, first question they'll ask you is the medication that I prescribed for you, how is it working? Have you noticed any changes? If you ever look at the package insert for the drug that you get at the pharmacy in that box, you open that up and it looks like a page out of the yellow pages. On the top part of that, you see the indications for that drug. All the rest are side effects. And one of the side effects that they look at, especially with geriatrics, is the loss of memory. And once they sense that, they see that, that's where they're either going to change that medication, it's going to make it something more palpable to the individual without that side effect. But the biggest thing is you can't ignore these changes that are ongoing. The other thing is it might have been a minor stroke that has caused some issues, and now you get into a life-threatening situation. So it isn't just necessarily Alzheimer's or dementia. Trying a medication for memory loss, again, this is another myth. But it's very important that you go to your physician and have your physician do a physical and do it on a yearly basis.
And he actually for 6 months called this mild cognitive impairment. And I kept seeing him every 6 months, and he finally, maybe the second visit or the third visit, he said, I hate to tell you this, but you are early onset Alzheimer's. And I asked him why he didn't say that in the first meeting, and he said to me, a lot of doctors are too fast about assuming that's what it is without further testing, because you can have the symptoms, and it can come from the drugs you're taking. And they can take you off those drugs and your mind will be fine. And there's other things that can happen to give you the symptoms of early onset Alzheimer's, and it really isn't. It can be corrected. And he just wanted to be sure before he did anything.
And again, he reinforced the statement I made about the drugs. Insurance you're going to take out, and they have very thoroughly asked a mental exam. One of the more popular parts of that exam is they start off with one section and they'll give you 3 words. And you say, I want you to remember these 3 words. And then they'll go off for about 5 minutes, and they'll be testing you on some other things. And they'll come back and say, can you repeat the 3 words that I gave you? And that's part of the mental exam that they'll do as far as Alzheimer's and dementia. Neurological exam, part of that would be that they're going to be checking to see. Sometimes they'll do x-rays. They want to check to see if there's been any shrinkage in the brain, any significant shrinkage. See if there's been any damage to the brain. Brain scans can usually pick that up. We all have some shrinkage over a period of time as you age, but nothing substantial like you can see with Alzheimer's and dementia. Some of the disorders that will be picked up on these tests, anemia, very popular. Excess use of alcohol. There you want to see somebody who's had an issue with memory loss, chronic alcoholism, people who abuse alcohol over a period of time. It definitely has an impact, a negative impact on the memory. Medication side effects, I mentioned that to you earlier. I mean, it's not unusual, certain meds that create some memory loss. And also infections. It's not unusual to run a high fever. It's going to have some impact on the memory over a period of time. These are the other forms of dementia. Vascular dementia is a direct result of a minor stroke because of impediment to blood flow to the brain. Frontotemporal dementia, that's where somebody has become very aloof, they become withdrawn, they have these mood changes. Somebody who used to be very outgoing now become more of an introvert than an extrovert. Mixed dementia is a combination of Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. Lewy body dementia is becoming more popular. It's where people are having nightmares and seeing little people running around. It's like somebody who's going through a detox, the same type of characteristics. But those would be the other forms of dementia, which would represent the other 30% combined, where Alzheimer's would be 70%. These would represent 30%. If you do get a diagnosis of dementia, explore treatments, and again, you've got to explore treatments with your physician. Every treatment is independent. what might be good for one person, another person can't handle it. It's the same with medications. Clinical trials are very important. We have a program called Trial Match, whereby an individual with dementia, they can go to our website at trialmatch.com. They'll be able to link the individual up, depending upon the geographical area and their zip code, with clinical trials that are ongoing right now. All of these clinical trials represent opportunities for the next stage of drugs that are coming down. A lot of these clinical trials have to be completed in order to get 510K approval on any drug, so it's not unusual. And they're always looking for volunteers for these trials.
Early diagnosis is very important, because it's like with anything, if you start early, you'll have more success in the treatment of it. And with Alzheimer's, there is no cure, but it can be made livable. The medication can help you live a more productive life with it.
She really represents very, very positive outlook and attitude. And as I said at the outset, it's the attitude that helps these people progress and live with the disease. Some of the medications that are available out there, they're going to alleviate symptoms. Like, it's not going to alleviate memory loss per se, but symptoms of memory loss. Cholinesterase inhibitors are the more popular prescribed drugs. You're probably familiar with Aricept. Another one is Exelon. Another one is Razadyne. And there's a fourth one called Namenda. They use Namenda in combination with Aricept. They found that to be helpful in treating the symptoms of memory loss. But those are the medications right now that are available. I can tell you that during the year, I think it was back in May, there was a report that came out from Biogen. And Biogen has had a lot of success with the drug. And the generic term is aducanumab. And it's proven now that it's actually slowed down the development of amyloid. And amyloid is a protein. Whenever they do an autopsy of the brain of somebody with Alzheimer's, they find amyloid in the brain. And amyloid is that produces these tangles. It's the tangles that actually destroy the neurons in the brain. So if they can slow it down with this drug, that's the best news we've heard for anything new coming down out of that pipeline in 7 years. So we're very, very encouraged about that. But again, you've got to talk to your doctors to see which treatment, the availability of these drugs would be good for the individual. That aducanumab, I mean, that's not available to the public right now. That was the first stage. There were only 14,000 in that population. They're now going to move it up to a wider spectrum where they get into the hundreds, 50,000, 60,000 people. It's going to go through 3 stages before it finally starts to move towards FDA approval. This is very important. One of the things that I did when I was named the conservative of the state, first thing I did is I looked at every asset he had. Every one of those assets were going to be protected. Keep it in mind, as I mentioned earlier, they're susceptible to fraud. And somebody's going to take advantage of it if they can. And it's very important that whether it be the home, jewelry, cash, stocks, assets have to be protected. But the key is you have to get with that person early on while they still have some cognitive function. Because you never want anybody to be accused of taking advantage by a family member of somebody with dementia and haven't changed their will. Because then you're in the litigation that nobody wants and nobody certainly needs. But the idea of protecting everything they worked hard for the beneficiaries and everybody else is very, very important. You also have living arrangements. You reach a point where these people cannot stay at home. They just can't. I mean, they get out of control. They get they get violent. They can be self-destructive. And at that point in time, they have to be moved into an assisted living facility, into a memory care unit, preferably. So all these things have to be accounted for. A lot of the most important things, you have to have somebody who's empowered to make these decisions. Now that's in the form of a power of attorney, in the form of an executor, or in the form of a conservator. But there has to be somebody who's going to be making these decisions for that individual. And then it can be very delicately handled. You might have somebody say, I don't want Joe involved because I saw Joe steal something from Mom, and so it's going to be discussed in a very mature manner. The care team, it's very important for the individual. Sometimes you can have a situation where somebody can't leave work and be at home 100% of the time. So you've got to build a team in the form of one of the adults, a couple of children when they come home from school. Somebody's going to watch mom or dad or grandma or grandpa for a couple of hours. So you have a team in place. Planning for the future. Legal advice is very important. Medical or treatment decisions. You can reach a point where the advanced care planning is going to come into the plan as well. And that's going to require somebody who's going to be authorized to say that grandma or grandpa, they don't want to be treated when they get to the emergency room, and that's got to be documented. In other words, they want to be sustained, their life being sustained if they're in the form of a vegetative state. And again, naming a person to make decisions on your behalf. It's very important that these things be done, again, while they have their cognitive function. So my friend John, he and I went to his attorney. And the attorney said, John, I talked to the physician, and he told me that this is going to continue, and it's going to get very difficult for him. Who do you want taking care of your affairs? Dan. So Dan, are you willing to do this? That's to be assigned. Now, the key to that was he had his functions when he said Dan. It wasn't done when he was ready to go into assisted living facility. And that's very important because, again, you don't want to get in a situation where a member of the family says, you took advantage of John, and we're not going to let you get away with it, we're going to sue you. And believe me, families can do crazy things, especially when it involves around assets. I don't know why, but it happens. It happens more often than it should. Probably it's the lack of communication with family members. The culprit behind it. If you notice signs, again, see the doctor, follow up on treatment recommendations. The doctor is going to be the key here. Following up on resources from your chapter, that would be our chapter, the Orange County chapter.
My passion in life is to have people diagnosed as early as I was, so that the good part of their life can be extended. I wear an Alzheimer's bracelet every day that says there's reason to hope, and I think that's kind of my mantra. If we can find people that are out there, get them to a good place where the guy knows, the gal, whatever knows what they're doing, and get diagnosed and get help.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks. These are the resources to help. We have 85 chapters in the United States. We have 5 here in California, 3 in Southern California. Our number one goal, number one mission is to increase the awareness of the disease and to make people aware of all the programs and services we provide. And all of these services are provided by the way of no charge. We never send an invoice to an individual, a family, a physician. No, we're a non-profit. 70% of our funding comes from public donations. Some of the services, care consultation, That referral, when I meet with physicians and medical groups, we ask them for these direct referrals whereby we have the name of the individual or phone number, and they sign off on this form that makes it HIPAA compliant. We can then reach out and contact the individual directly, and it's much more proactive than waiting for them to contact us. Education, again, it's getting back to making the public aware of all these services. 24/7 helpline, it's basically, I'm going to leave these here right up in front of you. This is an 800 number that can be called 24/7, and you will talk directly to a licensed social worker or a care consultant who would be very well versed in dementia and Alzheimer's. And there are all kinds of referrals that we can make as far as assisted living facilities, pharmacies. We're linked in with just about every single organization and service out of power. Trial Match, I made reference to that as far as the new drugs that are coming out of the pipeline. Public policy and advocacy. One of that challenges is, over the last 10 years, you can take prostate cancer, breast cancer, stroke, heart disease, and AIDS. Each one of those have had a decrease in mortality of anywhere from 2 to 42%. It's a direct relationship with the government, the federal government, making a financial commitment to R&D efforts for those diseases. Conversely, you look at Alzheimer's, it's a 68% spike increase in mortality. We don't have that commitment yet, and that's what we're pushing for. Therefore, that's why we go to Sacramento, we go to Washington, D.C. to push for that. These are some of the early stage services. Again, you can call that 800 number, that helpline, and they can put you in contact with the responsible person. This is more information. And all of these tools are available on our website. You go to the www.alz.org, and you can see exactly what I'm showing you right here. Trial Match, the 800 number. Again, the 800 number. Now, in closing, people will ask me, what can I do if you don't have a cure right now? It has been proven that delaying the onset of the disease can be attributed to a healthy lifestyle. Mediterranean diet is highly recommended. Mental and physical activity is very, very important. Socialization is very important. And you see people who take an early retirement, they used to be very active, and all of a sudden they're waking up a little bit later, they have breakfast, they get the remote, and so I'm just going to check on the news here. Next thing you know, it's gone from 9 o'clock and it's 12:30. Then they're ready for lunch, they're not doing anything like they used to. Not a good idea. You've got to stay active. It's very important that the diet is a healthy diet. And there's no question a healthy mind and a healthy body is going to go inside. More importantly, if you know of anybody in your family who's exhibiting any of these signs, you have to step in and help. And sometimes it isn't easy, but you look at the big picture, it's very, very important. And you never want to lose contact with that connection with them. I had placed my friend right over here in the Silverado 12 years ago. And I used to live in Dana Point, so I'm wondering close by, so when I'd be on the freeway to go to work, I could stop and have breakfast with him there and see him after golf on Saturday. And every time we'd have breakfast, we'd leave, and we'd go out and I'd sit in the lobby with him for about 5 minutes, and I'd be on my way. It was one day, he's looking at me, and he had that look like under his eyes were glazed, you know. And I said, "How you doing, John?" He said, "Okay." He said, "You know, I don't remember you. I don't remember your name." And I said, "Don't worry about it. I remember your name." So he took out his wallet. In his wallet, he had this card, and he had written on it, "Dan Bailey and my phone number." He said, "No, that's you, right?" I said, "That's me." The connection is still there. Even though he can't sit there and talk to me about golf, business, or anything else, he knew
that connection is alive, and things are going to be okay. So you can never walk away. Too many families will say, I can't go over there to see mom anymore. She doesn't know who I am. Don't talk to me. You know, it's just a waste of time. It's not. But think of the connection. Very, very important. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope this has been educational.